In this video, we show the practices that support ongoing changes in student thinking. In this lesson, Bethany introduces a new and more complex idea, that of density-independent limiting factors. We note that it is not important that you, the viewer, fully grasp this ecological idea in order to appreciate what happens in the lesson. Bethany has used a news item that was brought up by one of her students the previous day. A tsunami in Japan had transported floating debris all the way across the ocean to the Oregon coast. In the debris were many organisms native to Japan. She finds a reading about this event, has her students read it and talk about data charts that were part of the text, then creates with them another row on the summary table to record their new ideas. What we focus on in this brief video is later in the lesson when Bethany has her students reflect on their hypotheses about the snowshoe hare, given what they now know. This is an example of the third teaching practice in this set, which we refer to as using knowledge products to revise models or explanations. In this case, we count the students' hypotheses as initial explanations.
And we're going to put them into somewhere between 2 or 4 groups. So what I'd like you to think about, you can turn and talk with the person or two next to you, and come up with the groups for these posters. Which ones seem to have similar limiting factors or similar hypotheses? Okay, so let's see, put them in either between 2 and 4 groups. So go ahead and talk about that, and we'll try to come up with a group consensus. How many groups do you think we have?
Predators, population, no, predator, climate.
Okay, let's take 20 seconds. Sorry.
So the change of habitat would be density independent because it can happen at any time.
And then you said that the predators and the food was density dependent because it usually happens when it's not.
Okay, great. So let's start by rearranging those posters into those 2 categories, and then maybe we'll divide them into subcategories under that. So how could we do that? Does anybody see what we can do?
Just take that one, switch it with the hare versus predator. I said where the height of the hare used to be.
All right, gentlemen, I want you to come to the front row here.
Then you can take the change of habitat and put it all the way over there by itself.
So there was predators, there is the population, change of habitat, and then there was, I think that was it. That's the 3 groups.
All right, so I heard almost all of you say one major group is predators as the main limiting factor. So let's see how we can combine these. Let's put the predators all next to each other. About 4. Okay, so we're going to switch that with... All right, and hunting of the hares, is that about predators? Food, is having enough food dependent or independent? Dependent because?
Because if there's more of the same species eating one type of food, then there would be less.
Then there's competition between us.
Okay, so we've seen our kind of main ideas here. We have about 2/3 of the class thinking about predators as the main important factor here. One group thinking about food, and one group thinking about the habitat. Okay, so I want you to come back to the front of the room. I'm going to explain what we're going to do next.
So Bethany, I'm hoping you could talk a little bit about how the kids were thinking about the different hypotheses today, and how you think they're revising some of their hypotheses, and what you might do with that in the next few days.
Okay, so one really interesting thing I saw today was that we have these 7 different hypotheses, and I heard kids already starting to kind of group them into categories of hypotheses. So they had already listened to each other's, but I don't think that they had already come up with similarities and differences between them. And so by asking them today to think about how the activities supported or didn't support their hypotheses, they automatically started thinking about these categories. So they saw, oh, well, we talked about food and resources, but almost all the other groups talked about predators, and so they kind of had this grouping. And so we actually were able to come up with 3 categories of hypotheses. One was the food being important, and then one was habitat or shelter being important, and then one was the predators being an important limiting factor. So what was great is seeing that they started thinking about these different categories, but then what was also great is that I heard at least 2 groups saying, oh, well, I think actually I need to think about the other category as well. So they weren't just putting them in another box and saying, well, their hypothesis is different. They were saying, it's different, and I think it could help explain it too. So
Or
we
someone
need
were
to,
talking about, and it will strengthen my hypothesis to include the other one.
So I think that was really cool to see them thinking that they could fold in other ideas and that it would actually help the strength of their hypothesis. And then another really cool thing was we introduced this new idea today about density-dependent and density-independent factors, and that by just having that new kind of vocabulary and thinking idea, it helps one group really evaluate their hypothesis and think about how well it worked with that idea, and they've actually started to think about modifying their hypothesis to match the idea.
That was